Dawn bled slowly across the sky above King's Landing, staining the sea beyond Blackwater Bay, a bruised violet before surrendering to a sullen, dust-brown horizon. Inside the chambers once kept for honored guests of House Martell, Oberyn of Sunspear lay half-propped on a cushion of silk and spice-scented linen. The maesters had left him swaddled in bandages, an embroidery of blood and ointment binding the terrible void where Sir Gregor's gauntlet had crushed his teeth and nearly burst his skull. He breathed instead through the silver tube they had set between the bones beneath his left eye. Each inhalation whistled, thin and obstinate, like the desert wind forcing its way through the cracks of Sunspear's outer walls. By the time the sun cleared the roofs of the Red Keep, the Dornish prince was awake. His eyelids fluttered. A candle, forgotten from the night, still burned low. The chamber smelled of warmed tallow and foreign herbs, steeping in a copper pot beside the bed. Across the room, in a slant of light, sat Ellaria Sand, her eyes swollen from vigil, but bright with that same fierce tenderness she had shown him before the duel. When Oberyn tried to speak, only a rattling came. Ellaria moved like water, no wasted step, no sound, yet her movement rippled through the hangings. She brought a lacquered cup to his lips. The brew tasted of meerroot, bitter and deep, but beneath it lingered honey and lemon, as though the Dornish sun itself had been pressed into the potion. Oberyn swallowed. The act felt like dragging razors across the raw cavern of his mouth. Sweat gathered at his temples. Still, he closed his eyes, inhaled the steam, and let the potion burn its course into the hollows of bone and sinew. When he opened them again, Ellaria's face hovered near. "You live," she whispered, brushing a stray curl from his brow. Her voice trembled. "You mad, glorious man, you live." His good eye, dark, quick, searched her. For a moment he seemed to forget the tube, the crushed teeth, the agony that would follow him like a second shadow for life. He managed half a smile. It tugged the corner of his split lip and turned into a wince, but in that expression glimmered the spark that had danced across the arena floor the day before. The promise of vengeance, the defiance that had compelled 1,000 Dornish spears to follow him north. He gestured vaguely. Ellaria laid a slender finger to his wrist. "Water," she guessed. He shook his head. She leaned closer. "Justice," he croaked at last, voice all jagged glass. The single word filled the chamber, larger than the bee-soft buzz of sunlit moats, larger than the city groaning awake outside. Justice, for Aelia, for her children, for every Dornishman who still tasted ashes when he heard the names Lannister or Clegane. Justice, Oberyn thought, did not die on the sand. It rose again with him, broken but breathing, and because it breathed, it would one day roar. Outside the Red Keep, the morning matured into a furnace. Cobbles glimmered beneath a film of dust. Market cries tangled with the clatter of wagons and the distant lament of gulls skimming the bay. Ser Balon Swan, newly charged with standing watch at the Dornish prince's door, shifted within the steel tomb of his helm. The Kingsguard's white cloak hung stiff, as though scorched into shape by the heat. He felt each heartbeat echo inside the metal like a hammer against an anvil, and wondered if the whole city could hear the thunder in his chest. He had witnessed the duel, every cheer, every gasp, every sickening crunch. He had watched Prince Oberyn whirl like a scorpion-tailed dervish, had seen how the lance of that voice, that taunting laughter, shattered Sir Gregor's composure. Swan had half believed the mountain a thing beyond death, yet it lay now in the black cells, howling as 17 different poisons gnawed through muscle to bone. And the little prince, so small against the bulk of Clegane, still lived. The gods were terrible authors, Swan decided. They wrote endings no man dared predict. Behind him, the chamber doors parted with a sound like brittle parchment tearing. Maester Balabar emerged, hands crimson-flecked, though his sleeves were rolled. He nodded once to Swan and waddled off down the corridor, lips moving soundlessly, as though incanting a prayer to himself. Moments later, Prince Doran's emissary, Nymeria Sand, arrived, footsteps measured, unhurried. The hall bent around her as if sculpted by the arch of her stride. Swan caught the faintest hint of spiced wine and Dornish desert roses as she passed, her dark braid coiled tight across one shoulder. She did not look at him, and he dared not look too long at her. Rumor claimed the sand snakes had been told to wait in Sunspear until their father summoned them. Yet here stood at least one, and Swan suspected where one viper appeared, others coiled in the shadows. Nymeria paused before the door. "Sir Balin." She spoke his name with a certain courtesy, but her eyes were obsidian. "Is my father awake?" "Only just, my lady." Swan felt the dryness in his throat. "He needs rest." Her smile cut half a shade too sharp. "Rest is for the dead. I would see him." He hesitated. "Orders or courtesy?" "Very well." He stepped aside. Nymeria dipped her head in thanks, then slipped through the doorway. Inside, torchlight mingled with the sunlight, casting ambers across Oberyn's bandaged face. Ellaria lifted her gaze, surprise flickering to relief. It was a face Swan would remember, the raw vulnerability exposed in the curve of her parted lips, the weight of unshed tears trembling on her lashes. But he saw only the door close again as Nymeria entered, and his duty reasserted itself. Stand vigil, guard the threshold between steel and blood, between life and all the knives, wanting to silence it. In those first hours after waking, Oberyn tasted heat and iron. Memory came in shards. He remembered the sand beneath his bare soles, the roar of the crowd rising like a tide. He remembered spinning, staff a whirl of sunlit bronze. He remembered the moment of triumph, Sir Gregor sprawled, helm gone, face bared, the whole world holding its breath while Oberyn demanded confession. Then the avalanche, the mountain's gauntlet crushing his skull against the floor, the world turning black. There had been agony beyond song, an agony so vast it swallowed time and light. But beneath it, a quieter terror, that Ilias' name might vanish with him into nothingness. Now, he lay tethered to mortal flesh by pain and Ellaria's hand. Her thumb traced patterns over his knuckles, circles, half-circles, spirals reminiscent of the sun's sigil adorning Martell banners. His sisters had done the same when, as a boy, he bled from the barbs of wild desert roses. Some pains echoed through lifetimes. Nymeria slid a stool to the bedside. She carried a waterskin worked with silver palmettes, Dornish craft, austere yet proud. Her eyes, so like his own, flickered over the bandages, then steadied. "Can you hear me, father?" she asked softly. He nodded. The motion sparked a bloom of fire behind his forehead. Nymeria spared him no pity. She offered only truth. "Prince Doran has dispatched ravens. All Dorne knows the mountain struck you down and yet failed to finish you. They know your spear found its mark." She paused. "They also know a Lannister blade pressed against Prince Tyrion's throat, even as Sir Gregor dragged you to the ground." Oberyn's brows knit. Ellaria leaned close. "He wonders," she interpreted. He could form words, but each felt carved from stone. Speaking them risked crumbling to dust what little breath he possessed. Nymeria understood. Tyrion's fate is sealed, though Lord Tywin delays pronouncing it. Rumor claims the dwarf languishes in chains beneath the Tower of the Hand. The King's Council debates whether a public execution best quells the chaos. Ellaria's jaw tightened. "More blood," she said. Nymeria offered the barest shrug. "This city feeds on it." Then she turned back to her father. "But there is other news. Uncle Oberyn, the Sand Snakes, the Lords of Hellholt, Ghost Hill, and Spotswood send words of allegiance. They want to ride north, seize the Kingslayer, drag him back to Dorne in iron, and they want you to lead them." "Nimdaso." Ellaria inhaled sharply. "He cannot ride, not now." Oberyn closed his eyes. His thoughts drifted to Jaime Lannister's maimed hand, the golden hair, the casual arrogance that masked a festering wound of honor. To Cersei, pale and venomous. To Tywin, seated on his iron throne of numbers and fear. But above all hovered the image of Elia, laughing at the water gardens, her hair wet and clinging to her neck, her children squealing as they splashed. The mountain had crushed her skull as easily as he had tried to crush Oberyn's. "Justice," he thought again. He opened his eyes, throat rippling around the silver tube. Not yet, he rasped. Nymeria nodded once, unsentimental. Very well. I will temper the Lord's fire. But there is another matter, your spear. It leaned in the corner, its blade still dark, despite Maester's efforts to scour away the poison that had dripped from its grooves. Nymeria touched it as one might touch the hide of a sleeping viper. Grand Maester Pycelle demands its surrender, calling it an abomination. He fears tales of sand snake venom will inflame panic. I told him he may pry it from the hand of the warrior himself. A ghost of humor flickered across her lips. He took that poorly. Illyria laughed, a low, weary sound. Oberyn's smile tasted of copper. He found strength to whisper, "Good." The word floated on the air, a single gem catching light. That afternoon, word of Oberyn's recovery seeped through the walls of the keep, the way summer sweat seeped through linen. In the streets, sellswords wagered coppers on how long before the Dornish prince stalked from his sickbed to carve a path through the gold cloaks. In taverns, fishermen spoke of red vipers that survived decapitation, their bodies hunting blind for their severed heads. And in the small council chamber, beneath vaulted ceilings depicting the conquest, Tywin Lannister felt his fingers tightening around a quill, though he had not meant to pick it up. "Your Grace," he said, voice rasping like parchment over flint. Across the table, Tommen Baratheon, Child King, Trembling Leaf, looked up from a carved lion he worried between his fingers. 7 hells, Tywin thought, lamenting not for the boy, but for the kingdom's illusion of strength. The crown extends its compassion to Prince Oberyn in his convalescence. Yet Dornish unrest cannot be allowed to kindle war. We must secure a hostage. Master of Whisperers, Qyburn inclined his head. Princess Myrcella remains in Dorne, my lord. A gentle reminder to Sunspear that peace is mutually beneficial. Remind them, Tywin agreed. His eyes flicked to Varys' empty chair and then to Mace Tyrell, whose plump hands hovered above a tray of figs as though uncertain between gluttony and politics, and tightened the garrison at the Prince's Pass. Mace cleared his throat. Respected hand, if I may. Should we not dispatch a delegation to visit Prince Oberyn? Show royal gratitude that he spared us the mountain's trial. Tywin's eyelids drooped, a lion beneath half-drawn rings. We shall send Sir Kevan and Grand Maester Pycelle. The latter will examine the prince's injuries. It behooves us to know whether he will ride at the head of an army or linger bedridden, as rumors suggest. Nani. Across the table, Cersei lounged, chin propped on jeweled fingers. How quaint, she purred. My dear brother sends fatherly condolences to the snake who nearly derailed his justice. Tywin ignored her bait. Sir Gregor's condition deteriorates. Should he expire, I will need a symbol of strength to satisfy those who cheered his prowess. The faith will demand retribution for a fallen knight of the realm. His gaze settled on Qyburn. Find a narrative. Qyburn's thin lips curled. Narratives are delicate, Lord Hand, but I shall weave one befitting his service. At that, the chamber door creaked. Jaime Lannister entered, gold hand glinting. He paused only to offer his father a nod, one warrior acknowledging another, and took his seat beside Cersei. If he felt the tension coiling about the council like a noose, he gave no sign. Tywin dipped his quill. Ink pooled behind the letters of a message destined for Sunspear. Each stroke of script was deliberate, austere, a blade disguised by civility. He wrote not to soothe, but to remind Dorne that the rock's shadow reached even the brightest dunes of the far south. In Sunspear's tower of spear-shaped shadows, Princess Arianne Martell read the raven's parchment thrice. The first pass stirred anger, the second foreboding. By the third, she tasted resolve. She moved to the window, where the heat trembled like a living thing, and stared beyond the battlements to the white kiss of the sky across the sea. Nearby, a rook perched upon the sill, its feathers oil-slick blacked. It tilted its head once, then flew toward the shipyards where half-finished Dramans awaited christening. Arianne's lips pressed into a line. Her father, Doran, secluded within the water gardens, weighed patience like a jeweler weighs sapphires. Yet patience had yielded the blood of her uncle, had yielded the taunts of Lannisters that still echoed among these stones. Perhaps cold calculation alone could not avenge Elia nor safeguard Myrcella. She unrolled a second scroll. It bore Nymeria's hand. Father lives. Wounded, but unyielding. The mountain festers. The hand schemes. Lannister fear tastes sweet. Send sand and. Arianne traced the final phrase. Send sand. She pictured the sand snakes. Obara's storm-laced fury. Sorella's quicksilver mind, Tyne's smile. A garrison of grudges, forged in the heat of their father's loves and losses. But they waited by Doran's command. And Doran's commands locked inside their caution, the beating heart of all Dorne. Still, Arianne whispered, the time for waiting dies with the sun. She rolled the scrolls, secured them beneath an arm, and left the chamber. Every footfall echoed down the stairs like the strike of a drum, summoning more than servants, summoning the tide. Night crept over King's Landing, violet shading to onyx. In the Dornish chambers, torches guttered. Maester Balabar had plied Oberyn with more meruit, enough to dull blessedly the knives burying themselves in his nerves. Yet though his eyelids fluttered, sleep remained a gate barred by memory and desire. Ellaria half-dozed on a cushion beside him, her hand clasping his. Nymeria sat cross-legged on the floor, whittling a sliver of wood into the likeness of a spearhead. Candlelight carved flickering facets across her cheekbones. Shadows deepened the hollows beneath her eyes. Suddenly Oberyn spoke, clear despite his ruined mouth. Tyrion. Ellaria stirred. Nymeria lifted her gaze. He is doomed, she said. Let Lannisters devour themselves. Oberyn breathed. Listened to the whistling in his lungs, each note a reminder of vulnerability. He spoke truth. Every syllable cost a tremor, but he pressed on. He freed slaves. He suffers. Nymeria frowned. Sympathy, father? Debt, he corrected. Ellaria leaned in until her hair brushed his collarbone. You would wager risk on a man who walked the same stones as Cersei? Not. Same. He closed his eyes, recalling Tyrion's expression before the duel. The fear thinly veiled with bravado, the gratitude unspoken. He may help. Nymeria rose. And how do we acquire that help? The Tower of the Hand is iron and lion banners. We have no allies within. Prince Oberyn has one, said a new voice, dusky as twilight. The curtain parted. Varys stepped into the room, robed in plain brown, face gleaming with a sheen of sweat. He bowed. Your Highnesses, forgive the intrusion. Nymeria's hand flew to her belt, where a dagger gleamed. Spider, you spin too close. Varys spread soft hands. Peace. We share a common web. And Prince Oberyn, I believe, wishes to save Lord Tyrion from a fate the gods themselves might call excessive. His gaze flickered to the bandages. You were magnificent, my prince. A legend risen. Oberyn managed a rasped laugh. Varys inclined his shaven head. Yet legends require time to shape endings worthy of song. If we allow Lord Tywin his, shall we say, preferred conclusions, he will tighten every thread until none can move but to his bidding. I propose an unraveled thread. Damnaberwinis. Ellaria narrowed her eyes. Speak plainly. The eunuch glided to Oberyn's bedside. Plainly, my dear, I can spirit the imp from his cell this very night. Yet I lack a ship nor safe harbor, and the lion guards every gate within the capital. He would, Nymeria hissed. Tell us what you want. A whisper, Varys said. A whisper that sails south on Dornish winds. I need passage for Lord Tyrion to Sunspear. And in return, he paused, drew breath. In return, you gain the only living Lannister, who has tasted the sharp side of Cersei's tongue, who knows the rock's secret veins of gold, who perhaps hates his sister and father more than all Dorne combined. Silence pressed like a hand upon the room. Torches flickered. Outside, somewhere, a gull shrieked. Ellaria studied Oberyn. A question bloomed unspoken. Could they trust Varys? Could they shelter a Lannister and not unmake every oath Dorne had sworn since Nymeria of the Rhoynar led her people across the narrow sea? But Oberyn's gaze burned with a certain clarity. Pain-glassed, yes, but lucid. He nodded once. Nymeria sheathed her dagger. Where and when? In 2 hours, Varys answered. I will bring him through the lower tunnels. A skiff waits beneath the cliffs, manned by men who owe their mothers' dowries to me. They will bear Tyrion to a cove 2 leagues along the coast. There a Dornish galley flying merchant colors must meet them. He turned to Ellaria. Can this be arranged? She thought of the docks, how gold cloaks prowled them, suspicious of every barge since the tensions rose. Then she thought of the sea itself. Water did not bend to lions. Yes, she said, voice firm. Varys breathed relief. Excellent. I shall deliver the lion to the sun. He bowed again, then melted back through the curtains. When he was gone, Nymeria exhaled. We gamble with bones yet unhealed, she muttered. But perhaps the quickest road to the throne is paved in unlikely debts. Oberyn closed his eyes. A faint smile ghosted his lips, untamed, conspiratorial. Outside, the bells of the great sept tolled the hour of ghosts. 2 hours later, near midnight, a half-moon limned the cliffs in silver. A skiff hugged the rocks, oars muffled by cloth. Within it crouched 3 shapes. Tyrion Lannister, face gaunt but eyes alert. Varys, expression unreadable, and a sell-sail whose scarred cheek bore witness to 100 nameless skirmishes. The sea lay flat as a mirror. Stars etched themselves upon its surface. Somewhere above, gulls wheeled, complaining at this nocturnal trespass. Tyrion flexed shackled wrists. Freedom tastes of salt and damp pine, he murmured. Varys answered only with a tilt of the head. They rowed. Far beyond the guard tower's torch glow waited a cove where a single lantern bobbed. It crowned the prow of a galley, narrow and swift. Its sails were furled, all but a triangular spare that caught the faintest breeze from the south. Painted upon its hull, in chipped azure, was a name, Desert's Kiss. On its deck, Ellaria Sand stood flanked by 2 silent sisters, disguised as sailors. Nymeria paced beside the helm, profile etched against starlight. She smelled the sails before she saw them. Seasoned canvas, tar, the waxy tang of rope. She smelled also anticipation. Sharp, electric, like the scent before a monsoon. When the skiff scraped the galley's ladder, Tyrion climbed awkwardly, still bound. He landed on deck, looked from Ellaria to Nymeria. Ladies, he said, offering a crooked bow. I am in your debt. Ellaria regarded him. Elia loved all her husband's kin, she said after a time, even those who did not know her. The words were not an absolution, yet neither were they an accusation. She turned away. Secure the sail. We leave at once. Nilao. The galley's oarsmen heaved. The vessel eased into deeper water, prow cutting the sea with quiet purpose. Tyrion peered back, watching the lights of King's Landing recede. The city resembled a field of fireflies trapped in a black jar. Somewhere within that jar paced a lion of incomparable rage. Tyrion exhaled. Nymeria approached, proffering a waterskin. Drink, she said. He took a draught, wiped his mouth with the back of his chained hands. Where do we set course? Sunspear, she answered. Exotic, he mused. I hear the wines are strong. Nymeria's gaze flicked to his shackles. Stronger than iron? Everything is stronger than iron eventually, Tyrion said. Even rust. She almost smiled. Below deck, the sail checked the ballast. Above, a breeze freshened, snapping the triangular sail. The galley tilted, found its rhythm, gliding southward under the moons. In the Red Keep's highest solar, Cersei Lannister stared into a goblet of arbor red, swirling what remained. She had never feared the dark. Every child of the Rock learned early that shadows bent to gold. But tonight the corridors muttered. Servants avoided her gaze. The mountains shrieked and moaned in the dungeons, a ghastly symphony to accompany her thoughts. You murdered our sister." Oberyn's accusation clawed her anew. She had not murdered Elia Martell. Her father had orchestrated the sacking, yes, but the Martell princess had been consigned to Gregor's mercy. And what is mercy to a monster? She shivered. The wine licked her tongue, sagging into heaviness. A knock. Oberyn entered, bowing. "Your Grace." "Well?" Her voice cracked like ice. "The mountain's condition worsens. The maesters predict ours." Cersei's lip twitched. "Then, let him die." Oberyn hesitated. "I could preserve him." "Preserve?" She narrowed her eyes. "There are ways. Experimental, unorthodox. But they require discretion." She weighed him, this gaunt shadow, alchemist of flesh. For what purpose? To fashion him into something more than mortal. Oberyn breathed. A weapon terrifying enough to silence Sunspear's thirst for retribution. A slow smile curved Cersei's mouth. "Do it." Back in Oberyn's chamber, night deepened. Ellaria returned before dawn, silent as tide. She eased beside him, smelling of sea spray and victory. Oberyn opened one eye. Their fingers interlaced. No words passed. The press of skin spoke all. Nymeria lingered at the window until the first pale blush of morning. She counted the heartbeat between stars winking out and sun kindling the rooftops. A heartbeat echoing in the restless realm. Oberyn's breathing steadied, talking like a slow drum. In his dreams, he walked the water gardens, Ilia beside him, her laughter rippling across sunlit pools. Each step felt both delicate and unbreakable, a promise. The world could fracture, and yet, through shards, reveal new shapes of power. When he awoke, he would send ravens. When he awoke, he would summon every spear sworn to the sun. When he awoke, the sand would shift, dunes marching northward on winds of vengeance and ambition. But for this brief hour before dawn, he simply breathed, and the realm, unaware of the breath it stole, trembled. Morning again. Maester Balabar bustled in, clucking over bandages. Oberyn endured the cleaning, the salves, the lecturing. He did not protest as the Maester described rest, quiet, days, if not weeks. But inside he counted heartbeats, measured strength returning like the tide. As the old man prattled, Oberyn's thoughts flicked south to Tyrion slipping toward Dorne, to Arianne perhaps rallying the sand snakes, to the mountain's groans curdling in the black cells. Threads, Oberyn thought. Varys spins them. Tywin decorates them with corpses. But a viper does not weave. It bites severing strands until only venom shapes the pattern. Ellaria sat by the window, sunlight gilding her hair. She glanced over and met his gaze. He saw there not pity, but partnership. Together they had carved poems in sweat and blood upon the fighting pits of Meereen, upon the dueling sands of Sunspear, upon the very air when chance demanded. Together, they would carve a new poem across Westeros. Balabar finished. Nymeria entered with a parchment. A raven from Sunspear, sealed with the blazing Sunhand spear sigil. She broke it, read quickly, then smiled. Sharp, satisfied. Arianne prepares the sand snakes for voyage, she announced. And the Prince of Dorne himself travels soon to King's Landing. Water gardens permitting. Oberyn grunted softly. A laugh. Ellaria's eyes gleamed. It begins. Outside, the city roared, oblivious. But on streets where heat rose like the breath of dragons, whispers slithered. The viper lives. The rock trembles. Dorne stirs. And in a chamber perfumed by herbs and blood, Oberyn Martell closed his eyes once more. Gathering storms in the silence between heartbeats. The dawn sea rolled beneath a skin of rose-gold light, and the desert's kiss cut southward with all the hungry purpose of a hunting falcon. Tyrion Lannister lost track of hours in the dim cabin allocated to him. A cubby scarcely large enough for barrel and bunk, but his mind refused to settle. Chains linked his wrists to an iron ring set in the hull. Yet each time the ship's bow slapped a wave, he imagined the shackle of his old life loosening, one rivet at a time. Footsteps overhead told of busy sailors hauling canvas. The creak of the mast was a lullaby. The hiss of water beneath planks a whisper in a foreign tongue. Out there, beyond the wooden walls, waited the blazing kingdom of Dorne. And somewhere within its citadel, his niece Myrcella sat under the tutelage of warm winds and sharper politics. Tyrion pictured her smile, delicate but resilient, then pictured his father's frown. The two images collided like armored hosts on a battlefield in his skull. The door grated. Nymeria Sands stepped inside, boots silent on the boards. She bore a tray of figs, olives, and a single clay bottle beaded with cool perspiration. The aroma of crushed lemon leaves drifted behind her, breaking the stale cabin air. She set the tray on a barrel. "Eat," she said, then leaned against the wall, arms folded. Tyrion eyed the food, then her dagger belt, then his chains. "Will you free my hands?" he asked. "Not until my sisters break bread with you on Dornish sand." She uncorked the bottle, poured golden wine into a chipped cup, handed it across the narrow gap. "Drink." He raised the cup to his mouth, metal clinking against clay. The wine stunned his tongue with notes of apricot and desert bloom. "And here I feared you might poison me." Nymeria's mouth curved, half amusement, half challenge. "Oberyn leaves poisoning to the spears." Tyrion swallowed, throat aching with memory. "How fares your father?" "Alive, restless, breathing vengeance like a dragon breathes fire." A comforting image. Nymeria uncrossed her arms. "Varys claims you can help him channel that fire." Tyrion finished the cup, wiping lips with his sleeve. "Varys claims many things. Some true, some wrapped in silk and lies. Magisterial. He says Tywin fears Oberyn more than any man still drawing breath. Tywin fears little, but what he fears he destroys. Your father must strike quickly if he hopes to evade the rock's shadow." Nymeria pressed off the wall, eyes narrowing. "We do not need counsel on how to plot vengeance." "Perhaps not, but you need counsel on how Tywin plots, and on how Cersei loves, or poisons, the Iron Throne." Tyrion rattled his chains for emphasis. "I am, regrettably, an expert on both." Nymeria considered him, the ship rolling beneath. Outside, gulls cried, and the scent of salt thickened. "Eat," she repeated. Then, softer, almost grudging, "I will speak to Lady Ilaria about your chains." She left without further word. Tyrion reached for an olive. He chewed slowly, relishing the brine stinging his tongue. Every bite tasted of possibility, the chance to reinvent alliances, perhaps even himself, beneath the unforgiving sun of Dorne. North of the Red Keep, the slums of Flea Bottom crawled with rumor like rats in a midden. Children chasing stray dogs whispered of a prince who could not die. Bakers passing coin beneath flour-whitened nails spoke of poison soaking a spearhead. An outlawed practice, they said, yet somehow righteous when used against the mountain. Even the gutter singers tuned their bawdy ballads to a new refrain. One stanza for Clegin's screams, another for the viper's grin. At the inn called the Cracked Flagon, Bronn of the Blackwater sat beneath a lintel charred from an old fire, tankard in hand, boots propped on a bench. He listened to the gossip swirl, saying nothing. Two Sellswords at the next table argued about odds. Would Dorne invade? Would Tywin ransom a daughter to appease them? Bronn drank, eyes half-lidded, tallying names and wages in the flicker of torchlight. He owed Tyrion Lannister debts, both financial and inconveniently sentimental. But a dead man collects no coin, he thought, and rumor named Tyrion twice dead already. First when Joffrey's wine turned purple, then when Gregor's fist rose above the prince's duel. Contradictory tales traveled faster than ravens. When Bronn finished his ale, he rose, hefted a coin on his thumb, and flicked it to the innkeep. Outside, King's Landing stank of summer rot. Bronn breathed it once, as a man samples questionable stew, then headed for the docks. Ships whispered truer news than courtiers did. Wood carried rumor across the narrow sea quicker than any caged raven. As he strode, He measured his options. The new Lord Commander of the Kingsguard had one hand and zero gratitude for men who once saved him on the Blackwater. The Queen Regent possessed gratitude, but hers rotted faster than meat on a gibbet. And the hand? Tywin paid well, but expected his hounds to bite whomever he pointed at, sometimes even family. Bronn weighed the glint of Dornish gold, imagined the heat of Dornish sand beneath his boots, and smiled. Sometimes a man chose his battlefield. Sometimes the battlefield chose him. Better to reach Sunspear before the Viper hissed his invitation, or his condemnation. In the Tower of the Hand, Tywin Lannister lit a single candle, though the afternoon sun still blazed through arrow slits. The flame's small heart mirrored the iron in his gaze. Before him kneeled the newly forged knight of his design, Sir Robert Strong-Tie. The giant wore plate lacquered midnight, helm closed, not a sliver of flesh visible. Yet the size, the shape of those shoulders, even the smell, a faint whiff of embalmer's resin, betrayed what most feared to whisper. The mountain had risen as something else. Qyburn hovered behind, hands clasped, like a priest who had just consecrated a dread idol. Tywin regarded the night's shadow stretching across rushes, as though a second, darker soul lingered. "You will serve his grace," Tywin said, voice flat as steel. "You will guard him day and night, and obey every command from my lips alone." The helmet did not move, but the giant's gauntlet tightened around its greatsword's hilt until leather creaked. Qyburn's thin smile widened. Outside, bells clanged as a septon led a funeral procession for fallen tourney knights. Tywin snuffed the candle. Darkness reclaimed the chamber, yet Sir Robert's silhouette remained immovable. A monolith of latent violence. Tywin allowed himself one long breath. With this weapon, he could quiet smallfolk terror and the sand snake's bravado alike. A monster births fear. Fear births obedience. Obedience births peace. So had it always been beneath the rock. 3 days south of the capital, along the Roserad, a column of riders bore banners half-merged. The crowned stag of Baratheon, the golden rose of Tyrell. At its head cantered Sir Loras Tyrell, helm plume streaming, armor polished to mirror brightness. His sister's last raven had urged haste. King's Landing festered with schemers, and Tommen needed steady Tyrell arms near. Yet another message reached Loras at Bitterbridge. Prince Oberyn yet lived. The news perplexed as much as it emboldened. The Knight of Flowers had witnessed the duel's final horror. He still heard Oberyn's skull crack in his nightmares. Miracles reshaped the board, and Loras refused to play blind. He halted beneath an arching willow, where tireless sparrows sang. "We camp here," he ordered. Squires bustled, banners dipped. Loras dismounted, crossing to a low hillock away from ears. There, behind a screen of brush, waited his most trusted scout, a man of no name but unflinching allegiance. The scout knelt, offering a scroll. Loras read, "An inter-alliance proposed. Sunspear may welcome reach envoys to discuss Tywin's failing grasp." Signed only with an etched spear and rose. He crushed the parchment, pulse quickening. If the Viper beckoned, perhaps the rose must weigh thorns against opportunity. But loyalty to the crown anchored him. And yet, the crown chained to Tywin's will could strangle Highgarden as swiftly as it garroted Dorne. He moved to where the Roserad dipped toward Winding River. Beneath that willow shade, Loras Tyrell weighed treason against future kingdoms, and found the scale trembling. The desert's kiss made harbor at Planky Town beneath a moon-swollen amber red. Torches glowed along the docks like fireflies trapped in amber. Elaria Sand guided Tyrion up the gangplank, chains now slack at his wrists, a token trust she'd allowed hours before. Nymeria set foot on the pier first, hands signaling silent sailors who scattered into alleys to watch for Lannister agents. Tyrion inhaled the night air, brackish with soft hints of date palms. Above, constellations he'd seen from Casterly Rock shone unfamiliar here, tilted by the world's curve. A litter awaited. A carved box draped in sun and spear silk. 2 camelry overseers bowed. The beasts, tall and pale, rumbled in complaint. Nymeria gestured Tyrion inside. "The ride upriver is smoother at night. By dawn, we reach the Greenblood, then Sunspear." Tyrion ducked in, settling on cushions, scented with saffron. Ellaria climbed beside him. When Nymeria joined, she tapped the partition. The camels lurched. For a while, only hoof pads and wooden wheels disturbed the hush. Tyrion broke silence. "I thank you for the courtesy," he said, fingertips brushing silk. "I suspect many in Dorne would rather flay a Lannister than pamper one." Ellaria regarded him, eyes aglow in lamplight. "You are not Tywin, despite my best efforts," he muttered. "And not Cersei," added Nymeria. "Seven hells, no." Ellaria's expression softened. "Then treat Dorne with respect, and perhaps we will treat you as guest, not prisoner." He raised shackled wrists, rattled them gently. "A promising start." She studied him. "If you betray us, I make no promises I can't keep, but I will tell Prince Doran everything I know about the King's court, starting with Tywin's new pet monster." Tyrion described Sir Robert Strong's unveiling, voice bleak, dot-eyed. Nymeria listened, brows furrowed. When he finished, she whispered, "Necromancy." The word tasted of doomdust and old grief. Ellaria leaned close. "Steel alone won't fell such a beast." "Poison might," Nymeria mused. "If father's concoctions can still find a pulse in that corpse." Tyrion closed his eyes, rocked by camel sway. "Pray you discover which poison before Strong's sword swings south." Outside, the river murmur rose. Lanterns bobbed on barges carrying olives to market. Somewhere, a crane screamed like a woman woken from a nightmare. Tyrion thought of Jaime, of Bronn, wondered if either yet lived free. Then, he banished the thought. The past was a drowned town behind him. Ahead lay Dorne, a land that hated lions, yet perhaps needed one clever enough to bite the right throats. Far to the east, the stony fingers of the Red Mountains caught first light. On a ridge overlooking the Prince's Pass, Oberyn Sand tested the draw of her yew bow. She had been dispatched by Arianne 2 nights earlier, entrusted with gauging the march of Lannister soldiery, rumored to mass at the frontier. Wind needled her cheeks, carrying scents of scrub and goat droppings. Below, dust plumes marked a column. Perhaps 200 footmen, half as many horse, banners of House Swift and Crakehall fluttering. Not an invasion force, yet, but a warning. Oberyn spat. Lannisters declared peace with mailed fists. She notched an arrow, watched the lead horseman. If she loosed, the shaft would find his throat before he heard winds whisper. But Arianne's orders were iron. Gather intelligence, avoid provocation. Oberyn hated the word. Provocation was the spice that livened blood. She drew breath, exhaled, lowered the bow. Behind her, hoofbeats. She turned, arrow raised, but it was Lady Tyneen, golden hair bound beneath a desert scarf, riding 2 mares whose saddles overflowed with satchels. Tyneen lifted her veil, smiled innocently. "Sister, still hunting ghosts?" "Ghosts wear crimson," Oberyn growled, nodding at distant banners. "They march lightly now. Soon they'll march heavier." Tiny dismounted. "Then we tighten knife points." She opened a satchel, revealing small vials nestled in sand. "Father's mixtures, enough to fell a warhorse with a needle prick." Oberyn's stern facade cracked into a grin. "Let the lions roar. We'll answer with whispers." Together, they surveyed the valley. The sun crawled higher, scalding. Somewhere across that wasteland, the viper healed. Oberyn felt the pull of vengeance like a chain about her throat. Soon, she promised the mountains, soon blood shall kiss stone. Prince Doran Martell departed the water gardens at dusk, borne in a palanquin of carved teak, on the shoulders of 12 spearmen. His gout-ridden legs throbbed, but his mind churned with calculation. Each day's sun painted new lines upon the game board, and each night's breeze whispered the names of children lost to dragonfire and Lannister cruelty alike. Beside the palanquin rode Ariohota, longaxe across his lap, eyes scanning dunes for threats that slithered like glass-scaled vipers at twilight. Ahead, 2 outriders carried torches whose flames shivered in the heat. Doran reclined, rereading his niece Arianne's missive. "Oberyn lives. Tywin plots. The imp sails to us. He closed eyes swollen from sleepless council sessions, picturing the last lines. The sand snakes gather. They are wind and storm. Command us. He inhaled, tasting the perfume of blooming moonflowers nearby. In youth, Dorne had danced across those gardens with Elia, their laughter mingling with fountain splash. When news of her death reached Dorne, he'd sworn vengeance, but vengeance shaped by patience, not fury. Oberyn was his spear. He was the shield. Together they formed more than sibling bonds. They were design. A soft voice intruded. "My prince." Ariodotol. Riders approach. Dorne signaled halt. Evening shadows stretched long across desert track. Two figures emerged. Sorella Sand astride a rangy courser and Darkstar. Gerald Dane, glittering eyes beneath a silvered helm. Dane dismounted, dropping to a knee. Sorella executed a half-bow more roguish than courtly. "We bring tidings," she said, removing a parchment sealed with copper waxed oil. From the stepstones, a Mirish fleet sails toward Blackwater Bay. 50 warships under the Golden Company's hire. Doran's heart ticked faster. The Golden Company once pledged to a Targaryen restoration. Their sudden movement, were they Tywin's gambit? Or some rogue alliance with Stannis? With Aegon Blackfire rumored to linger across the sea? He accepted the scroll, unfolding. Charts confirmed course. Speed. He read in silence. At length he addressed Sorella. "Return to Arianne. Tell her patience balances sword and spear." Then to Dane, "Gerald, ride ahead to Sunspear. You shall escort Lord Tyrion under my banner when he arrives." Then Darkstar rose, violet eyes smoldering. "A Lannister beneath Dane protection," he muttered. "Will wonders never cease?" Dorne's reply was soft as sand brushing stone. "See that he arrives intact, or the wonder will be how long you keep your head." Dane's smirk faded. He bowed, mounted, and spurred east. Sorella lingered, concern flickering across her copper complexion. "Uncle," she asked, voice low, "are we at war?" "We are at the precipice of choice," Doran answered. "War is one step forward, or one misstep back." Sorella nodded, then vaulted onto her courser, vanished into coming night. The palanquin resumed, bearing Doran toward Sunspear, toward a storm he had brewed for many long thirsty years. Sunrise found the litter conveying Tyrion cresting a dune that overlooked the mouth of the Greenblood. A fog of jade mist hovered where river met sea. Barges bobbed along reed-framed banks. Beyond, the white towers of Sunspear clawed the horizon, their spiral tips blazing gold in morning light. Illyria pulled aside the litter's silk. "Behold Dorne's heart." Tyrion shifted, chains clinking. Sunspear glimmered exotic, yet carried an austerity at its edges. No massive walls like King's Landing, but 1,000 narrow alleys twisting inward like a labyrinth. Wind off the water stitched distant marketplaces with salt and saffron. They crossed a pontoon bridge guarded by spearmen in burnished copper. The captain bowed to Illyria, waved the litter through. Children atop reed huts paused their chores to gape at the small shackled man inside. Tyrion met their gazes, raising chained hands in a gesture half salute, half surrender. They giggled, pointed. Inside the city proper, streets narrowed, packed with merchants hawking pomegranate wine and carved ivory. Sandstone facades wore balconies draped in crimson cloth. The litter's bearers wove expertly, never jostling. Tyrion glimpsed men and women of all hues. Salt traders from the Basilisk Isles, tattooed Bravosi sellswards, lounging, Roynish river folk perched like seabirds along rooftops. Diversity thrummed here with an energy King's Landing seldom matched. They arrived at the old palace. Gates opened onto a courtyard shaded by orange trees heavy with blossom. Ario Hota awaited, tall as a tower. He offered Illyria a courteous nod, then fixed pale eyes on Tyrion. "The prince will see the lion," he said. Inside, hallways cooled by trickling water conduits led them to a chamber lined floor-to-ceiling with painted tiles depicting the Rhoynar Exodus. Prince Doran sat upon a cushioned divan, a carved cane resting across lap. Nymeria knelt beside him, murmuring. Obara and Tiny flanked a fountain at the room's center, oiling spearheads. Tyrion's escort halted. Ellaria stepped forward. "Your Grace," she said, kneeling. "We bring the imp of Casterly Rock, as promised." Tyrion bowed awkwardly, chains clattering. "Your Highness, I thank you for hospitality." Doran's eyes, deep as wells, studied him. "And I thank you for arriving uninvited yet most expected." "Remove his chains." Areo complied, key turning. Metal fell away. Tyrion rubbed wrists, noting small welts. He suppressed a grimace, bowed deeper. "I stand ready to answer for crimes or counsel." "Crimes," Obara echoed, spinning her spear. "Begin with those." Tiny smirked. "Let the man speak, sister." Doran raised a hand. Silence fell. "We shall hear Lord Tyrion's counsel on 3 matters. First, his father's designs. Second, the crown's weakness. Third, the mountain reborn. Speak, Lannister, and weigh each lie against your life." Tyrion exhaled. A hush took the hall. Only water lapping stone. He began, voice measured. "Lord Tywin's designs orbit 2 sons, his granddaughter's reign and his legacy of dread. He seeks to present himself as sole bulwark against chaos. To that end, he revives a monster to wear new skin and to wield terror. He courts the Golden Company to threaten Stannis, or any pretender. He hoards grain, hoards coin, hoards rumor. But in hoarding, he spreads himself thin. He underestimates the cost of fear." "Metzra." Tyrion paced, unshackled hands gesturing. "Crown's weakness? Tommen is a child, sweet but pliable. Margaery Tyrell weaves gentle webs while Cersei spins ones barbed with madness. The small council fractures. Qyburn seeks arcane secrets. Pycelle bemoans each new sunrise. Mace Tyrell cares more for lunches than war councils. Varys, well, Varys escorted me here. Perhaps I'll send greetings." He paused for effect, scanning faces. Obara's glower remained, but Tiny's eyes glittered intrigue. Nymeria watched as if carving mental notes. Tyrion continued. "As for the mountain, he lives, but not as man. Qyburn's arts pumped death from his veins, replaced it with something thicker than blood, colder than hate. They call him Sir Robert Strong, but make no mistake, he is Sir Gregor, loyal only to those who feed him victims. His strength endures. His conscience does not. If unleashed, he breaks armies." Doran's fingers tapped cane. "How slay such a beast? Blades of fresh Valyrian steel might sever tendons too swift to heal. Poison delivered past plated steel into the marrow that yet rots inside him. But better still, keep him leashed by exposing the abomination to the faith militant. The High Septon would denounce necromancy as heresy, undermining Tywin's symbol." Obera spat. "Words to kill a monster, better a spear." "Perhaps both," Tyrion conceded. Doran leaned back, eyes half-lidded. "You speak clearly, yet why grant us such treasure?" Tyrion met his gaze. "Because Tywin sentenced me to die for a crime I did not commit. Because my sister rejoices in my fall. Because your sister Ilya deserved children who lived past cruelty. And because, Prince of Dorne, my survival requires your victory." Silence. Then Doran's cane rapped tile once. "So be it. We test your worth." He turned to Nymeria. "Prepare ravens to Highgarden. We court Tyrell doubts. Arrange gatherings in the Hellholt with House Uller and Fowler. And summon the Sand Snakes to council at dusk." He addressed Tyrion again. "You will dine with us tonight." "Speak further, then." Tyrion bowed. "I shall come armed only with wit." Obara twirled spear, sniffed. Tyene winked. Ellaria exhaled a breath she'd seemingly held since entering. Areo Hota gestured Tyrion aside to a smaller chamber. As they walked, Tyrion allowed himself a thin smile. Chains gone, walls new, yet one unbroken truth. Politics tasted the same everywhere. Simmering soup of salt, spice, and blood. King's Landing baked beneath cruel noon. In the gardens above Maegor's Holdfast, Queen Cersei paced a colonnade wreathed in blooming purple irises. Sir Robert Strong shadowed her like an eclipse, Courtiers gave them wide berth, eyes cast down lest they glimpse the empty visor slits and remember what horror might hide behind. Qyburn joined, whispering. Our agent reports the imp reached Planky Town. Cersei's nostrils flared. I want his head on a spike. Dorne shelters him. Then Dorne shall burn. She turned, catching the distant skyline. The dragon pit, the tower of the hand, the ghostly char of the sept of Baelor's ashes, still faint from riots months past. Cersei imagined the city under dragon's shadow, remembered rumors Aegon Targaryen still lived abroad. Enough threats circled. She would not permit a dwarf to spark rebellion. Send word to the Iron Bank, she commanded. Promise double interest on loans if they deny Sunspear credit, and dispatch ravens to Lord Frey. Let him unleash archers on any caravan southbound. We starve the snakes before they slither north. Qyburn bowed. As you wish. But mind the Golden Company's approach. 50 ships may reach Blackwater within a fortnight. Let them come. Sir Robert will greet them on the shore. She stroked the giant's steel-clad arm, as one might pet a mastiff bred for war. And when the world sees our champion, all rumors falter. She strode onward. Behind her, the mountain wine steel lumbered, each step shaking petals from the irises onto marble like droplets of purple blood. At dusk, Sunspear's throne hall filled with flickering lamplight, rugs depicting spears and suns muffled footfalls. Prince Doran sat beneath a carved arch open to sea breeze, flanked by Arianne on his right and Oberyn, carried by Litter, on his left. The Viper still wore bandages at jaw and temple, but his gaze blazed. Elaria supported him, hand steady on his shoulder. Before them assembled the sand snakes, Obara stern as parched stone, Nymeria poised as a drawn bow. Tynae smiling sweet venom, Sorella lurking near a pillar with tomes under one arm. Ariohota guarded the only door, Longax gleaming. Tyrion entered beside Geraldine, both freshly bathed, wearing loose Dornish robes. Conversation stilled. Tyrion approached until the prince gestured halt. Dorne lifted a parchment. From High Garden, he announced. Mace Tyrell extends olive branch. He proposes betrothal. Myrcella to his youngest son, Willis, to cement Southron peace. Doran's lips lifted in wry amusement. Hay speaks of unifying Reach and Dorne. Obara scoffed. Tyrell's court every rose but wilt when frost arrives. Arianne leaned forward. Yet an alliance might sever Tywin's supply lines. The Reach feeds half his granaries. Oberyn rasped through healing throat. The Tyrells killed hunger at King's Landing, then fattened the lion cub with bread and compliments. But bread can mold. Compliments can sour. Tynae fluttered lashes. We accept betrothal in principle, but demand Myrcella crowned in Sunspear as rightful queen. That would brand Tommen a usurper without bloodshed. Tyrion interjected. Cersei would call it treason and send every sword she owns. Nymeria's smile held no warmth. Let her. Doran drummed fingers. A queen crowned in Dorne could ignite war. Yet war perhaps cannot be shunned. Still, I prefer war chosen, not coerced by pride. We need more pieces upon the board. He gestured to Tyrion. You spoke of the faith. Elaborate. Tyrion swallowed wine, began. The High Septon loathes abominations. If we reveal Qyburn's work, say by smuggling testimony from a Red Keep novice who witnessed the procedure, the faith militant will demand the monster's life. Tywin relies on Robert Strong as instrument of fear. Revoke that, and his legend weakens. Nebunwan. Sorella placed her tomes on a low table. We can cite texts condemning necromancy, gather septons sympathetic to Dorne's martyrdom of Elia. Their sermons will spread faster than raven flights. Obara grunted approval. Let the people curse Lannister wickedness. Doran nodded. So be it. Sorella, gather scrolls. Nymeria, send riders to Starfall. The Danes harbor priests scholarly and devout. He paused. And we must show strength beyond words. Obara, Tynae, I task you with a strike. Cripple the column massing at Prince's Pass. No hostages, minimal blood, destroy their provisions, scatter their courage. Oberyn's grin split wide. "It will be done." "And I?" Gerald Dane asked, eyes shining with dangerous glee. "Escort Lord Tyrion to Hellholt at dawn. There he will draft letters to cast doubt into the Tyrell court, letters only a Lannister could forge believably." Tyrion bowed. "My quill is yours." Oberyn lifted cup shakily, toasted across the hall. "To doubt," he croaked, voice raw but sure. "To serpents in the Eden of lions." They drank. Night slid fully over the city, and outside, waves slapped rock with the rhythm of distant drums. Across the Prince's Pass, dawn found Oberyn and Tyaine perched on a ledge overlooking the Lannister encampment. Oberyn oiled bowstring, Tyaine unstoppered vials, coating arrow tips in sheen that caught first light ominously. The camp stirred. Soldiers rubbing sleep from eyes, cook fires sputtering. Wagons loaded with salt pork and hardtack sat marshaled along the dusty track. Oberyn nocked an arrow, exhaled slow. Tyaine whispered, "Aim for the mules. Chaos follows." Oberyn's arrow sang. It struck a mule's flank, poison burrowed. The beast shrieked, reared, toppled a wagon. Tyaine loosed second arrow, quivering into a kettle of lamp oil near flame. Explosion of fire engulfed tents. Sleepy soldiers scrambled, cursing, grabbing spears. Oberyn fired thrice into powder kegs stacked by the blacksmith forge. An eruption thundered, showering sand and sparks. Horses bucked. Tyaine's neck shaft hooked ropes securing water casks. They burst, flooding fire into muddy confusion. From ridge heights, lesser sand snakes, daughters of lesser mothers, unleashed slingstones, breaking commands, horns, and helm crests. In half an hour, what had been a tidy forward supply depot turned smoking ruin. No banner remained unburned. Oberyn slung bow over shoulder, nodded to Tyaine. "We ride." Behind them, survivors coughed amid flames. Captain's voice cracked, calling regroup. But supplies were lost, animals dead. Morale shredded beneath swirl of sand, kicked by departing hooves. At the Hellholt, Tyrion found himself lodged in a tower room, overlooking a courtyard, where scorpions clicked across sun-baked tiles. House Uller's Lord Harmon offered grudging hospitality. "We keep daggers sharp, dwarf. Prove worth or feed my pits." Tyrion accepted vintage prickly pear wine, then set to work with parchment and quill. He composed letters in his father's clipped syntax, addressed to Walder Frey, Randall Tarley, the Iron Bank. He seeded rumors: Cersei's madness, Tommen's illegitimacy, Tywin's failing health. He suggested alliances, promised rewards, hinted at secrets of gold mines running dry. A lie perhaps, but one seasoned with possibility. Gerald Dane hovered, reading over shoulder. "Clever ink," he admitted. "But will quills outfight steel? In the end, steel obeys coin and conviction." Tyrion said, "I supply both." Ravens launched at dusk, wings beating west and north. Tyrion watched them fade into an opal sky, then turned to the next parchment, a long, heartfelt letter to Jaime. He hesitated, quill above ink. At length he wrote, "Brother, I live. If you wish to find me, follow the scent of revenge across the sands." He paused, considered adding more. Apology, accusation, love twisted into something brittle. Instead, he sprinkled sand to dry the ink, folded the parchment, sealed with no crest. This raven he sent north by secret hand, uncertain whether it would fly true, or whether Jaime still cared. Tywin Lannister received 3 ravens the following week. The first dared to question Cersei's ability to rule. Unsigned, it nonetheless reeked of Reach parchment. The second accused the hand of draining Crownland silos to fund private forces. It bore a Frey seal. The third came from Iron Bank couriers demanding immediate interest on outstanding crown debt. Tywin's composure cracked when Pycelle read the missives aloud. He dismissed counsel abruptly. In private, he paced chambers of the rock-carved tower. Someone sowed doubt with precision. Someone who knew his accounts, his grudges, his daughter's follies. Tyrion, he deduced. The dwarf weaponized secrets gleaned during his tenure, as master of coin. Tywin tightened jaw. He ordered Kevin to muster 4,000 Westermen to march on Dornish marches, ordered Qyburn to intercept ravens leaving Sunspear, and ordered Cersei to leash her temper. Orders she ignored. Meanwhile, reports of destroyed supply wagons in Prince's Pass reached him. He smashed a wine decanter. War horns blew in his skull. In Dorne, Prince Doran assembled his war council beneath citrus boughs. Maps unfurled across mosaic tables. Oberyn, teeth still being refashioned with fine gold implants by maesters, pointed to 3 mountain passes. "Here we lure them," he said through partially healed jaw. "Their numbers favor narrow defiles. Ariohota suggested hidden scorpion ballistae along cliff ledges. Sorella proposed using Roynar River craft to land troops behind enemy vanguard." Doran listened, weighing each plan against blood price. Then he spoke. "We will bleed Lannister resolve without drowning land in corpses. We harry their flanks, steal food, scorch wagons. And when Tywin tires, we present a queen, Myrcella, crowned by both Dorne and Reach. The realm craves stability. Give them a child untouched by Cersei's claws." "Nay," Arianne nodded grim. "Grandmother Tyrell will embrace such pageantry." Oberyn's eyes blazed. "Then I shall ride with Myrcella into Old Town, spear at her side, and let the maesters witness dawn of new reign." Doran placed hand upon his brother's. "Not yet. Heal. Your legend is sharper whole." Illyria squeezed Oberyn's shoulder. He relented, but fire continued to burn. Across the seas, the Golden Company altered course. Spies whispered of dragons stirring in Meereen, of a silver prince calling himself Aegon sailing west. But Tywin's coin outshone distant promises. Their commander, homeless Harry Strickland, weighed payoffs against oaths to lost kin. He'd nearly chosen Lannister gold when fresh ravens arrived, letters forged in Tywin's hand, rescinding payment should they land. Confused, Strickland hesitated, turning fleet south to the Stepstones, awaiting clarity. Tyrion's poison quill had bitten. The faith militant revived beneath 7-pointed stars. Rumors of a natural night reached the High Septon, who preached that souls dead must remain so. Sparrows thronged sept doors, chanting. Cersei shrugged off sermons, until a delegation demanded audience. She refused. Riots threatened. Tywin urged her to compromise. She shouted him from chamber. The realm groaned under weight of absent kings and resentful queens. On a midnight rampart overlooking the shadowed alleys of Sunspear, Tyrion found Oberyn leaning upon crenellations, moonlight silvering his bandages. Tyrion approached. "You should rest." Oberyn chuckled, winced. "Pain reminds man he lives." He studied Tyrion a moment. "You work words as I work poison." "I dabble," Tyrion said. Oberyn turned gaze to sea. "When I lay broken on the sand, I tasted death, salt and copper. Today I taste future, bitter, but spiced." He looked at Tyrion. "If we win, what becomes of you?" "I've not thought that far. Drinking wine in a vineyard where no one knows my name holds appeal." Oberyn smiled half grim. "Help us carve justice. Dorne will gift you vineyard wife or weapons to chase dragons. Whatever pleasure beckons." Tyrion raised brow. "The wife part sounds treacherous. Treasure often is." Oberyn's eyes hardened. "But betray us, lion, and there is no corner of the world my spear will not pierce." Tyrion inclined head. A comforting assurance. The viper laughed, softer. "Come, share wine. Speak more of your father's secrets." They leaned against stone, whispered plots until moon leaned west, and dawn's pale promise dusted horizon. Weeks passed. Lannister forces pushed into the foothills, only to find wells poisoned, boulders blocking passes, sorties of unseen archers, picking officers from saddles. Night fires bloomed. The red flower of raid foot, Dornish guerrilla warfare. Morale sank, desert sun blistered skin unaccustomed to such fury. In King's Landing, grain prices doubled. Queen Margaery fed poor from Tyrell stores, earning love. Cersei rationed with cruelty, earning hate. The High Septon declared Sir Robert Strong a demon. Cersei countered by parading him through streets, only to spark riots. Gold cloaks beat protesters. Small folk whispered of returning dragons to burn the queen. In Sunspear, Myrcella arrived under guard of Lady Eris Oakhart, putting aside fears to greet Dorne with curtsy learned from Red Ark sand. She listened as plans revealed her future crown. Though only a child, resolve flickered behind Baratheon green eyes, a child who had seen King's Landing's betrayals. She accepted Dorne's proposition to be queen of a new sunrise throne. A coronation date set. Within the water gardens, beneath Rhoynar mosaics, invitations flew north, east, west. Some ravens vanished, but many reached ears eager for alternative to lion rule. Tywin assembled second host. Gold mines mined deeper. Debts multiplied. Still, each new march found traps. Then came news. Highgarden envoy sailed to Sunspear with gifts, to witness coronation and discuss alliance. Tywin cursed, realizing rose petals drifted beyond his grasp. Desperate, he dispatched Jaime to parley with Dorne. The one-handed knight rode under flag of truce through bone-dry passes, guarded by spears in hidden rock. When he arrived at Sunspear's gates, he found not rage but careful courtesy. Ariohota leading him to a shaded hall, where Myrcella sat enthroned, Oberyn at her side, golden smile newly forged across his teeth. Jaime's heart twisted seeing his niece alive yet shining with independence. He greeted her, voice hushed. She called him uncle still, but a queen's poise echoed. Oberyn rose, leaning on jeweled cane. Kingslayer, welcome to Sun's justice. Jaime swallowed. I come to prevent war. War? Oberyn said. Already wages in hearts. Let us move to table. Speak with Prince Doran. Dantarisain. Behind, Tyrion emerged. Jaime froze. Brother and brother met eyes across a gulf of spears. Words failed. Tyrion broke silence first. You look well considering. Tie. Jaime began, but Oberyn interposed. Later. Now diplomacy. They convened in chamber, cooled by water veil. Doran wheeled close. Sir Jaime. We present Crown Princess Myrcella of House Baratheon, rightful queen. Recognize her, an open door to peace. Jaime looked at Myrcella. Love warred with duty. I am sworn to Tommen, he whispered. Tyrion stepped forward. Thus you stand between two children, both your blood. Whom will you serve? The one cradled by a mother's madness, or the one shielded by those who loved Elia? Jaime flinched at Elias' name. He eyed Oberyn, the viper's face unreadable. Dorne spoke softly. Do not choose now. Write to your sister. Invite her to parley on neutral ground, Old Town perhaps. Let her see the state of realm. Let her see her daughter. Jaime agreed, albeit reluctantly. He penned letter under watchful eyes. Ravens flew within the hour. As he waited, he shared private meal with Tyrion in a high veranda. They spoke of escapes and sorrows. Jaime confessed nightmares of Golden Hand weighed with guilt. Tyrion confessed forging letters. They drank lemon wine until desert stars blurred silver. When they parted, they were not reconciled, but distance between them less lethal. Cersei read Jaime's letter amidst counsel, tore it halfway through. A trap, she hissed. Yet seeing Myrcella's soft script, appended pleading, her iron melted. She demanded Tywin ride with her to Old Town, with Sir Robert Strong and 3,000 men. Tywin balked but agreed. Better shepherd lioness than let her roam. The procession left King's Landing under pall of smoke, riots having scorched dockside storehouses. As they crossed the Mander, word reached them. The High Septon marched at tail of column, thousands of sparrows bearing cudgels, chanting judgment. Tywin's teeth ground. In Old Town, the Hightower bells tolled upon their arrival. Lords of the Reach lined streets to witness parley. Within the citadels, marble halls, Marguerite Tyrell awaited, flanked by father and grandmother. Faces masks of pleasant disquiet. Cersei entered in gilded gown, Sir Robert looming. Across the hall, Myrcella stepped forward, Oberyn at her side, crown of sun-wrought gold upon brow. Doran wheeled into light, Arianne behind. Silence pressed. Then Myrcella spoke, voice steady. "Mother." Cersei's eyes shimmered. She moved, only to halt when Sir Robert barred path. Uncertain, Oberyn motioned, and he stepped aside with surprising obedience. Mother and daughter embraced. For a heartbeat, war paused. But Tywin advanced, gaze locking on Oberyn. "You wage rebellion," he said. Oberyn's smile was thin as spear blade. "I wage justice." High Septon stepped forward. "Justice begins with eradication of sin. I name this creature." He pointed at Sir Robert. "Unholy abomination." Cersei bristled. Tywin's hand twitched near sword. But murmurs grew. Tyrell guards whispered. Reach lords glanced, some stepping back. Oberyn seized moment. The faith seeks true king or queen chosen by gods. Let 7 bear witness. Myrcella stands pure, Tommen stands manipulated. And this corpse knight proves Lannister sins. Tywin opened mouth to retort, when suddenly Sir Robert lurched, gauntlet reaching for Oberyn. Too swift. But Erio Hota anticipated, intercepting with longaxe. Steel met steel. Oberyn rolled aside as battle chaos erupted. Sparrows surged, chanting. Tyrell gods stepped between. Cersei screamed. Tywin shouted for order. Sir Robert swung greatsword, cleaving sparrows like wheat. Blood sprayed marble. Oberyn snatched spear from guard, eyes blazing. He circled the undead knight. "Round 2, he rasped. But Dorne cried, "Brother, no." Too late. Oberyn lunged. Spear tip scraped breastplate. Sir Robert backhanded, sending Viper sprawling. Oberyn rolled, coughed blood, rose, grinning feral. He drew hidden stiletto coated in manticore venom, Tyrion's gift. He threw. Blade lodged between gorget plates, at jugular seam. Venom slid inside. The giant staggered. For first time, helm tilted in confusion. Qyburn's enchantments warred with toxin. Sir Robert swung again. Slower. Oberyn dodged, stabbed with spear butt to helm. Oh, crack. Helm dislodged. What lay beneath was gray ruin of Sir Gregor's visage, eyes glowing faint blue. Gasps, shattered hall. Faith militant roared fury. Tyrell knights advanced on Tywin's men. Amid chaos, Tyrion pulled Myrcella behind column. Shielding, Sir Robert bellowed, collapsed to one knee. Venom boiled reanimated blood. Oberyn limped closer, raised spear for coup de grace. No. Doran's voice cut. Oberyn froze. The prince addressed High Septon. Let the faith judge this creature. Sparrows swarmed, chaining night, dragging toward fire braziers. Sir Robert roared once more, then silence. Tywin watched, face carved from ruin. He saw alliances crumble. Tyrell stepped back from him. Faith turned openly hostile. Daughter hysterical. Son's claim questioned. He felt the rock's unshakable ground shift beneath feet. He turned to Oberyn. Name your price, he said hoarsely. Oberyn's smile glimmered. Elia, Rhaenys, Aegon, their names paid in truth and throne. Tywin's shoulders sagged. I cannot give life to the dead. But you can kneel to the living. Oberyn gestured to Myrcella, who now stepped forward, chin high. Tywin fell to one knee, not out of fealty but exhaustion. Sword clattered. He bowed head. Cersei shrieked, torn between blood and pride, but sparrows barred her. The hall echoed with new order. Reach lords bowed. Faith raised scepters. Dorne closed eyes, breathing future he built piece by piece. Tyrion exhaled, sensing father's fall like weight lifted yet sorrow blossomed. Oberyn knelt beside Tywin, whispered, Tell Elia spirit justice breathes. Then stood, raising spear in salute. Thus dawned the reign of Queen Myrcella first of her name, crowned beneath Hightower's light, accepted by Faith, Reach, and Dorne. Lannister banners folded into Dornish sun. The lion bent before the viper's coil. In coming moons, councils rewove realm. Tyrene alliances formed, coined debts renegotiated, small folk fed. But challenges seeded. Question of dragons across narrow sea, murmurs of northern kings, unrest in the Vale. Yet for a moment, spear and quill, poison and prayer, united to birth fragile peace. Oberyn walked balconies of Old Town's high tower, wind ruffling silks. Elaria joined, slipping fingers into his. Below, harbor bells rang. Above, gulls spiraled. He inhaled salt mingled with distant orange blossom from carts arriving Dorne's produce. Pain still throbbed in jaw, but inside burned something fierce. Not vengeance, not yet victory absolute, but hope, strange, fierce, and alive. Tyrion found him there. "Your grace," he teased. Oberyn snorted. "I leave crowns to children, and to brothers who plot the impossible." They shared wine, watching sunset turn sea to molten bronze. Somewhere, bells tolled again, not for death but new beginnings. Spears might rest a while. Words might govern. Yet both men knew peace rides skittish horse. Still, as dusk embraced them, Oberyn smiled. And in that smile glimmered promise of realms remade under sun and spear. And perhaps a lion's wry counsel beside. And the wind that swept across Old Town carried faint echoes of Elias' laughter, at last unburdened, mingling with gull cries fading into the deepening night. Ksha'ika. A hush clung to Old Town after the coronation, the city's ancient stones holding their breath like sages wary of fresh prophecy. Where the high tower's beacon had burned bright throughout the night, dawn revealed its pale flame flickering meekly, as though the tower itself bowed in deference to the new queen. Myrcella Baratheon, hair pillowed in sunrise and sea breeze, stood on its highest balcony with Prince Dorne, both silent, studying a horizon where gulls wheeled against a molten sky. Below, on slow-moving barges, Rhoynish traders unrolled bolts of silk, dyed the red-orange of Dornish sunsets, gifting them to Old Town's harbor in subtle celebration. The queen barely seemed to breathe. A tear she had withheld before the masses now traced her cheek, golden in morning light. She wiped it with the back of a sleeved wrist stitched in blossoms of House Tyrell. A gown hastily sewn overnight by Reach seamstresses, eager to clothe the dawn of a fresh reign. Doran's voice, quiet as wind under a door, carried beside her. Few rulers are granted the kindness of tears on the first day of rule. Treasure that softness, it fades. Myrcella inhaled a shuddering breath. "I feel heavy, uncle. Responsibility wears iron beneath every silken hem." Doran squeezed her gloved hand. "Yet, you do not bear it alone." The morning bells tolled across the city, echoing along the Honeywine. Below the balcony, scholars emerged from the citadel, rubbing sleep from lamp-sore eyes, and small folk filled cobbled lanes in cautious celebration, uncertain how quickly the day's song might change. In the streets, Dornish spears standing shoulder to shoulder with Tyrell men cut an unlikely tableau, row after row of desert steel and flowering surcoats. Children darted among them, chasing banners fluttering in breeze, scented with 1,000 new possibilities. In a shadowy cloister hidden between beech-planted courtyards, Tyne Sand knelt beside the prone form of Sir Robert Strongeye. The creature lay bound in chains thick enough to moor galleys, his cuirass cracked in a spreading star around the dagger's entry. Qyburn's protestations had failed. The High Septon's zeal had overridden all but the barest concession, that before they burned the monstrosity, knowledge be wrung from its remains. Thus, Tyne, redoubtable in her piety when it suited, was granted a private audience, with needle, with vial, with curiosity. She drew a slender lancet and tapped it against the exposed flesh beneath the helm's visor, flesh gray and scarred by unnatural sutures. No breath fogged. Still, warmth pulsed. The body clung to some foul mimicry of living force. She pierced a vein. Mucus-thick blood welled, the dark color of old wine. She filled a small glass vial, corked it, slid it into her satchel beside other vials labeled in tidy Valyrian glyphs. Their contents, when combined, promised torsions of agony that even the stranger might pity. She looked down upon the mountain thing, wondering if it felt her theft. A clink of spurs. Tyne straightened. Ser Balon Swan approached, helm tucked beneath one arm. His face bore the wounded gravity of a man who had watched oaths unravel like rotten rope. "The faith'll burn him at sunset," he said. "Let them," Tiny answered, wiping the lancet. "'Tis mercy. Fire will cleanse what man's fear created." Swan's troubled gaze drifted to the corpse. "Will it? I dream of the mountains still, alive or dead. I fear flames only birth new horrors in this land." Tiny slid her dagger into a wrist sheath. "Dreams cut only if you lend them edges." She brushed past him, leaving the cloister to rejoin her sisters. Swan lingered, staring at the mountain's still form, half expecting the giant to stir again. When he finally departed, he walked slower, each step a prayer that the seven were not deaf. In a walled herb garden scented with lavender and citrons, Oberyn Martell stretched under the watch of a Myrish healer. Scars mapped his torso like a cartographer's fever dream. He inhaled, exhaled, and pushed palms to the sky, joints crackling. Gold, prosthetic teeth, newly set, gleamed when he smiled. Elaria paced near, palms clasped behind back, listing names of lesser Dornish bannermen dispatching riders north to swear oath to Queen Myrcella. Oberyn only half listened. Each breath reknit muscle. Each measured motion reacquainted him with pain and possibility. "You brood," Elaria said finally, halting. "Speak it." "I count what still stands between us and peace," he replied. "A list longer than my spear. Stannis in the north, dragons in the east, Freys on every bridge, the Iron Bank tallying ledgers. And your own ghosts." She added softly, "Yes. They whisper even now." He flexed fingers, remembering the crunch of his skull in the sand, remembering Elias' laughter. But ghosts wield no swords. The living do. He turned toward her. "Where's our lion?" Tyrion left Old Town at first light with Prince Doran's maester. They ride for Highgarden. Raven wings travel faster than tongues, but a Lannister tongue may yet unravel what quills began. Oberyn's smile sharpened. "Good. Let the Reach feast on his riddles while we set snares in King's Landing." Elaria raised a brow. "Snares?" Cersei's pride remains unbroken. He lowered arms, face grave. "She will rally storm clouds. We must seed them with thunder of our choosing." Elaria nodded, lips pursed. "Then I ride to the Stormlands with Obara. Marry courage to cunning, arrow to chaos." Oberyn's fingers cupped her chin. "Stormlands are rain and ruin. Take my love, cloak yourself in it." She kissed his palm. "And leave your ghosts here under sun. We will meet again where no shadow walks." She departed. Oberyn watched the citrus trees sway, each leaf a blade under morning glare. Far across Westeros, in the echoing chambers of Dragonstone's obsidian keep, Stannis Baratheon studied maps by candlelight. Melisandre's red shadow flickered across walls, her whispers soothing, sinister, insistent. News of Old Town's coronation had reached them on crab-fishing sloops, words heavy with salt and disbelief. "Myrcella Queen," Tywin humbled. The Viper ascended. Stannis' jaw tightened. A Lannister girl sits the throne, and the realm calls it lawful. Bah! He stabbed a pin into the Reach on the map. "We sail. We seize Blackwater Bay again. We cut through this Dornish Tyrol farce. Metamot. Many candles show victory," Melisandre purred. "Yet others sputter in strange winds. I see a queen bathed in dust-colored light. I see dragons aloft. I see snow climbing southern walls." "Visions," Stannis muttered. "Men fight battles, not smoke." Yet he lingered on the last image. Snow? Jon Snow? He pushed the thought away. Duty first, blood forever. North of the neck, winter's teeth bit early. In Winterfell's great hall, banners of the flayed man still draped gloom despite Roose Bolton's absence. He had marched east to quell an ironborn raid. But whispers snaked through the keep. Queen Myrcella crowned. Tywin knelt, the realm shifting. Wyman Manderley, guesting under grudging hospitality, laughed long and loud when the news reached him. Lannisters bowing to snakes. Perhaps Freys will sprout wings next. Ramsay Bolton's mood soured. He prowled battlements, chewing a strip of salted pork as if it were the neck of a Dornish prince. If Lion and Viper could trade places, Then what of wolves caged under flayed sigils? Change reeked in the air, and Ramsay hated any scent not salted with fear. Beyond the walls, women of the free folk, granted tenuous settlement after the failed Battle of the Ice, traded hides for bread. They too whispered of southern tremors. One spearwife named Thistle pressed ear to the ground, declaring she heard dragons winging on buried thunder. Few believed her, yet fear sprouted quick as crowfoot in thaw. In the free city of Braavos, under the Titan's shadow, the Iron Bank's marble vaults thrummed with clinking abaci. 3 senior factors huddled around a ledger freshly delivered from Westeros, blotches of seawater smudging Tywin Lannister's seal. Got delinquent again, observed Noho Demitis, thin lips pursed. What of the new queen? Asked Tycho Nestoris. A girl of barley summers propped by Dorne in the Reach, Noho said. Risky. But Tyrell coffers, please. A third, a Lysine woman draped in pearls, fingered a parchment stamped with golden roses. Highgarden offers double surety if we recognize Queen Myrcella, could stabilize crown repayments. And if Stannis wins? Tycho mused. Noho sighed. We finance multiple suitors as always. He dipped quill. Dispatch emissaries. 1 to Old Town, 1 to Dragonstone, 1 to Pentos. Should dragons cross sea, let dead choose its master. Across the narrow sea, in Meereen, Daenerys Targaryen stood between her dragons, Drogon and Rhaegal, upon a wind-gusted terrace of the Great Pyramid. Her city simmered with victories half-baked, insurgents half-defeated. Missandei entered bearing scrolls. One bore the seal of the Golden Company. Another carried a symbol unfamiliar, a coiled viper piercing a lion. Daenerys cracked the latter. A tidy Braavosi hand conveyed invitation. West is ripe. Iron withers. Lions kneel to sun. Should the Mother of Dragons wish to land in a realm fractured, she will find allies in Dorne against the usurper queens and kings alike. Daenerys crumpled the parchment in a fist. Usurpers on every shore, she murmured. But perhaps some serpents hate lions more than dragons. Missandei scanned the message. A ploy? Potential, Daenerys countered. Yet I trust only fire. She strode to where Rhaegal lashed tail restlessly, and laid a calming palm on green-black scales. Prepare ships. If Essos cannot be tamed, let us test Westeros once more. Old Town's star-flecked sky bowed to a new moon when Tyrion and Geraldine reached Highgarden. Lanterns in silver filigree glimmered along groves heavy with jasmine. The castle, usually bright as a midsummer feast, now guarded its joy, uncertain of war's next shape. They were led to a solar hung with tapestries depicting Garth Greenhand sowing harvests. There waited Olenna Tyrell, sharpened eyes behind age's wrinkles, and Marjorie, her smile subdued. Tyrion bowed low. Your graces. Olenna waved a curt hand. Spare us flattery. I hear you pen missives in father's jargon. Craft one now. Convince the Iron Bank to forgive usury so we can rebuild after Cersei's nonsense. Tyrion's grin stretched. A letter. For you, my lady, an epic. They spoke until dawn dew kissed roses outside. By sunrise, agreements inked in lemon water scented parchment-bound reach. And Dorne, grain for her spears, wine for coastal patrols, a joint council to handle crown levies. Marguerite would remain Lady of Flowers, wedded to Tommen still. But Tommen, a prince fostered in Old Town's care, freeing both from Cersei's direct embrace. Myrcella would rule from capital retaken when the day came. Until then, Old Town served as provisional seat, its maesters tasked with chronicling this tumult for future generations. Under those rose-scented pacts, Tyrion wandered gardens later, stumbling upon Sansa Stark near a hedge maze, guest of the Tyrells these past moons. She stiffened seeing him, recalling horrors of King's Landing. He removed his cap. Lady Sansa, I remain the same broken knight you once called husband. But perhaps now I can help undo wrongs done. She measured him. Help the North regain itself, and perhaps I'll believe. He nodded. I'll begin with a raven to White Harbor. Wyman Manderley loves an underdog, especially one with gold. He gently bowed away, leaving Sansa to the bees among foxglove. Word of Tyrell. Martell Compact traveled the Riverlands on Hawkwing carriers. Houses still nursing wounds from the Red Wedding. Blackwoods, Mallisters, Brackens paused. A royal change offered chance to shift grudges onto new prey. Frey and Lannister levies retreating to the Twins. Small folk cursed Frey tolls, cheered rumors that the Viper Queen would raise their bridges. At Raventree, Lord Tito's Blackwood convened bannermen under torchlight. If lions bow to suns, he proclaimed, let ravens spread wings beside. He loosed scouts into the rain-soaked birch forests, mapping Frey patrols. A tide of red vengeance stirred. In the Vale, Lord Petyr Baelish warmed his hands by a hearth in the Eyrie, while sweet Robin Arryn slept. His spies whispered all. Tywin's humiliation, Cersei's fury, Dornish ascendancy. Littlefinger rubbed thumb to forefinger, savoring new opportunity. The Vale remained untouched by war. An unbled vein. He penned letters to Dorne offering oat harvests, to Stannis offering ships, to Daenerys via Pentoshi intermediaries offering passage through the fingers. Whichever ruler emerged, Petyr vowed, the Vale would sell them high. Back in Old Town, council convened inside the stony echo of Starry Sept Idot. The High Septon, robes smelling of frankincense, blessed Myrcella again for the realm's benefit. Behind carved pews sat Doran, Tyrion, Olenna, Maester Samwell Tarly, newly raised for scholarship, and a scattering of Reach lords. They debated seat of power, coin, faith. Tyrion sipped watered wine, half listening, his mind tracing north to walls of ice and secrets, south to dragonfire he felt in nightmares. A ghost of Shay's voice, of Tysha's laughter, drifted then fell away. He blinked, shoved guilt into a deep shelf, and focused on words swirling like sparrow wings. The High Septon concluded, may the Father guide us, may the Mother shelter our children. Applause fluttered. Doran guided his chair toward Tyrion afterward. Queen Myrcella rides for King's Landing in 3 weeks' time with half the Reach's host. We require cunning to enter city without siege. Tyrion tapped chin. I once knew hidden tunnels beneath the dragon pit. Some collapsed after wildfire blasts. A few still breathe. I'll guide a vanguard under cover of offering grain. Call it penance for the riot famine. Gold cloaks will open gates at sight of carts. Gold always buys hunger's silence. Doran smiled. Oberyn will like this plan. He rides again. He refuses an idle crown fitting. Let him. Tyrion's mouth hooks sideways. King's Landing fears ghosts under bed. It quakes at thought of a viper under floorboards. South of the Blackwater, Cersei's column limped back toward capital. With Tywin collapsed by fever born of travel strain, Qyburn hovered, brewing tinctures. Sir Robert gone. Lion banners drooped as if sensing doom. Cersei's eyes reddened. At each camp, she raged, then sobbed, then drank dream wine. Kevan urged reason. She spat. On the 9th night of March, a desert wind blew inland. A freak gust tinged with salt and orange blossom. Cersei jolted awake in her tent, convinced she smelled snakes. That dawn, scouts returned with tidings of Dornish outriders skirting their path, burning empty villages to remind Lannisters how far the sun's reach extended. Cersei ordered pursuit, but her outrunners found nothing but sand swirling like mocking spirits. She rode into the capital grim-faced, to find gold cloaks muttering, small folk spitting. Tapestries of her father's deeds had been slashed. Queen of Ashes, someone hissed as she passed. She wanted heads, but Tommen, left in Red Keep under Pycelle's care, clung to Sir Balon Swan, terrified. The boy's eyes wide, accusing. Cersei swept him into arms, whispering lies of safety while her fury boiled. In Old Town's harbor, Dorne's flagship, the Burning Spear, awaited tide. Oberyn boarded first, clad in flowing crimson surcoat, spear polished anew. A cheer rose from dock sailors. Elias Justice. He raised clenched fist. Behind him came Hightower Knights, Reach volunteers, half of House Redwine's fleet. Queen Myrcella stepped last, flanked by twin Kingsguard. Sir Loras in rose-etched plate, and Sir Eris Oakhart in sun-kissed mail. Wind fluttered her mantle sewn from golden oak tree leaves. Crowds bowed. Bells rang again. As more lines cast off, Tyrion joined the queen on quarterdeck. Sunlight shimmered on water, gilding seaward passage like molten mirrors. Tyrion squinted east. The world's grown narrower, he said, but freedom still slips through cracks. Myrcella watched gulls. Will the city welcome me? Some will, he met her gaze, and some will howl. But remember, anyone can wear a crown. Few bear it. Show them you can bear it? She nodded, jaw set. I will. The fleet slid north along the coast. At each port, Bandalon, Cape Wrath, the ruins of Tarth. Fishermen hailed them, calling blessings upon the Sun Queen. In the nights, bonfires dotted shorelines, signals of quiet alliances. But storms brewed beyond mortal eyes. On the horizon, crows thickened above battlegrounds yet unchosen. At Dragonstone, sails were readied, oaths sworn to a fiery heart. Across the seas, a silver dragon queen charted a route of war. In Winterfell, ravens beat wings against gathering storm clouds, claws scraping barred windows. On the burning spear's forecastle, Oberyn leaned into wind, tasting salt and prophecy. Elaria's absence ached beside him. Oberys and Tyenne's lives balanced on edges of their own missions. Yet he felt ghosts at last quieter. Stern Elia nodding from sunlit balcony in memory. Rhaenys giggling by water garden fountain. Aegon chasing a wooden snake through orange grove in echo of laughter. Vengeance, once endless appetites, had broken bread with justice. What remained to be fed was hope, and hope, he knew, ate slowly, but demanded lavish courses. He breathed deep. Spear butt tapping deck to rhythm of hull meeting waves. Ahead lay King's Landing, still dotted in soot scars, still stinking of riot sweats, still pulsing with secrets buried in catacombs and sept foundations. He imagined entering through dragon pit tunnels, emerging at dawn among pillars of rubble to find the city not ready for liberation, but waiting, terrified, yearning. The wind shifted, south to north, carrying whispers like the desert hiss of vipers in moonlit dunes. He lifted face, eyes narrowing. Somewhere beyond sightline, a distant roar answered. The bawl of a dragon, perhaps, or only thunder playing tricks on memory. Either song fit the coming days. Near the Red Fork, Bronn of the Blackwater led a dozen sellswards across marshy ground. They had spent weeks raiding weapon convoys bound for Casterly Rock, selling munitions back to Blackwood scouts for double. Hearing of the Queen's fleet, Bronn changed heading, urging men south. Where the vipers go, gold follows, he declared. Trouble too, but Bronn never shied from that. At night's camp, a rider straggled in, a young woman clad in dark leathers, face hidden by hood. She demanded audience with Bronn, offering a purse heavy with silver stags. When she removed hood, Bronn recognized Arya Stark, older, deadlier. Take me to Queen Myrcella, she said. I have names to trade for the lives of innocents. Bronn grinned. Fortunes indeed migrated with snakes. The burning spear anchored at dusk 3 leagues south of King's Landing, in a cove drowned in long lilac shadows of Blackwater cliffs. Scouts slipped ashore, signaling clear passage through tide pools. Oberyn, Tyrion, and Sir Loras rode in the first boat. Myrcella stayed aboard with Aris, her anxiety masked beneath lessons learned at court. Never let fear wrinkle brow. They trudged along goat paths to a rocky gully where brambles scraped cloaks. Tyrion knelt at bricked hole half hidden by ivy. Here, he whispered. Smugglers once ferried arbor wine through these shafts to avoid tariffs. He pried a loose stone. Stale air exhaled. It winds to the basement of the Dragon Pit sub-arena. Sir Lora signaled to 50 picked men waiting among boulders. They unshouldered packs, torches, coils of rope, small casks of reach grain. Commons will think we're mule cart, Lora said. Until gate, unlatches. Oberyn checked spear. Blade glistened faintly. Newly dipped in widow's blood, A gift from Tiny before she vanished into Stormlands. He grinned sideways at Tyrion. Shall we? They entered, single file. The passage narrowed, ceiling sloping. Torchlight lit damp walls. Rats scampered. Tyrion breathed dust-heavy darkness, heart trembling. Not with terror but memory. Of days hiding from Joffrey's sadism. Of nights mapping tunnels with Shay's warm hand in his. He pushed emotion aside. After 50 paces, the shaft widened into cavern. Dragon pit foundations loomed overhead, cracked ribs of long-dead beast of empire. Brickwork sagged where wildfire from Aerys' stores once scorched. They crossed rickety platform bridging a chasm lost in murk. Up a spiral stair slick with moss, they reached iron door. Tyrion pointed, stables above. 2 gold cloaks posted midday, none at night. Tunnel. Loras eased ear to metal. Silence. He eased latch. Door creaked. Through, they entered abandoned stall reeking of straw and dung. Moonlight shone through gaps. Outside, muffled laughter from taverns drifted along windy lanes. Oberyn pressed hand to doorframe, whispering to spear tip as if to lover. "We dance again." He slipped into lane. Tyrion and Loras behind, men fanning out. Alley smelled of boiled onions, slop drains, and kettle stew. A drunkard lurched past, mistaking them for common sellswords. At lane's end rose a postern leading into outer ward of Redkeep's Hill, its lock famed for rust and disrepair. Tyrion knelt, producing files. 3 minutes later, bolt slid. He grinned. Loras signaled men to stash grain sacks in doorway. Symbolic offering if discovered. They advanced into fortress shadows. Overhead, rampart torches spat sparks. Sounds of garrison shift echoed. Boots on stone. The plan. Capture gatehouse. Raise Queen's banner before dawn. Open main gates to fleet troops crossing river on hidden barges. Swift, bloodless ideally. Yet the gods spin threads mocking mortal weavers. At first courtyard, a troop of gold cloaks lounged around dice circle. Loras stepped forward, rose cloak concealing sword hilt. "Orders from Queen Regent," he began. Dice players looked up. One, red-nosed watch captain, squinted at Dornish spear. "Queen Regent? She's back." The man reached for horn to sound alarm. Oberyn's spear flashed through firelight, pinning horn arm to table. Cloaks rose, shouting. Tyrion ducked as first sword swung. Loras drew, parrying. Steel clanged across courtyard, scattering pigeons roosting overhead. Oberyn vaulted table, spinning spear and blur, butt striking jaw, blade cutting tendon. One guard slumped. Another lunged, met spearhead to thigh, collapsed, screaming. Yet commotion thundered up walls. Alarms would follow. "Change of plan," Tyrion barked. "Barricade gates? Await Queen's arrival at dawn. Hold courtyard." Loras planted himself center, rose cloak billowing. "Knights of the Reach," he cried. His 50 answered, shields locking as gold cloaks spilled from turrets. Spear-bearing Dornishmen from second wave poured through postern, sun spears among rose shields. Courtyard erupted in swirl of crimson and green, sand and petals dyed in blood. Tyrion pressed against wall, scanning exit routes. Up stone stair crawled a monstrous silhouette. Cersei's new champion, in absence of Robert Strong. Sir Lyle Crekehall, boar massive, donning black plate hammered to mimic late Sir Gregor's dread. He bellowed, scattering gold cloaks to clear path. Oberyn's eye glinted. "Mine," he growled. He spun spear, advanced. Crekehall hefted great mace studded with spikes the size of thumbs. Each stride shook masonry. They met beneath flickering torch. Blow for blow. Mace crushing flagstones. Spear flicking with serpent's hiss, drawing sparks from plate. Oberyn ducked haymaker swing, planted spear butt, levered up, caught mace chain mid-arc, twisting. Crekehall roared, wrenching back, blade scraped. Oberyn rolled aside, slashed knee behind greave. The boar bellowed, limped, swung again. Spear found armpit gap, entered flesh. Crekehall seized shaft, yanked Oberyn close. Plate helm, a snarling maw. Or. Oberyn headbutted metal, teeth clacking. He twisted again, blade slicing deeper. Crakehall sagged. Oberyn ripped spear free. Blood geysered. The champion collapsed, shaking earth. Gold cloak's morale fractured. Reach Dornish lines surged, capturing stairheads. Tyrion darted to tower door leading to gate machinery. Inside, 2 engineers cowered. He waved dagger. Drop chains. They complied. Portcullis hammered down, preventing City Watch reinforcements from Outer Bailey. Through archery slits, first pink of dawn tinged harbor. Beyond walls, faint silhouettes of barges drifted. Sails furled. Warhorn bleated, a Tyrell call. Soon, thousands would flood city. But at Upper Red Keep remained Cersei's hold. Her personal Lannister guards, clad in crimson enamel, blocked King's Road to Maegor's Holdfast. Tyrion knew alternative. Catacombs connecting Sept ruins to throne room antechamber. Secret once used by Aegon's heirs to slip paramours inside. He found Loras catching breath by well. To the crypts, Tyrion urged. End this, before your men bleed out. Loras nodded, collected 30, including Sir Balon Swan, who had swung sides when he saw Lannister cruelty escalate. They followed Tyrion through narrow arch, down spiraling darkness, smelling of old stone and bat droppings. Torch ahead ignited hall of sculpted dragons. Steps climbed. Heartbeats hammered. They emerged in vestibule, where marble lion statue guarded cedar doors to throne room. Screams echoed beyond. Cersei rallying. Tyrion pushed one door. Barred. Loras signaled 2 knights. They wedged axes, preed. Wood splintered. Door burst open. Inside, Cersei stood atop dais before iron throne. Gold breastplate over white gown. Eyes crazed. Crown lopsided. Tommen hid behind column. Tear streak. Qyburn clutched satchel of wildfire bombs. Hands shaking green glow. Pycelle lay unconscious at foot of throne. Cersei sword leveled at intruders. Traitors, she hissed. Loras advanced. Lay down arms, your grace. No blood need stain throne again. She laughed brittle. Blood built this throne. She lobbed goblet. Wine-splashed marble. You think I yield to snakes and flowers? The lioness devours predators. Torchlight revealed lamp flasks arranged about dais. Wildfire. Tyrion's breath caught. A single spark could turn hall into green inferno. He stepped forward, palms raised. Sweet sister. Silence. She brandished dagger. You lie with Dornish sand to poison our name. Oberyn strode from corridor behind, spear upright, blood dripping. Names bleed or bloom my deeds, he said quietly. Choose bloom. Cersei's eyes widened, seeing his face, teeth of gold. Fear flickered, then fury. She kicked lantern toward wildfire flask. Tyrion lunged, catching lantern mid-air, but not before wick spilled flame. Fire flared green beneath dais. Loras shouted. Knights herded Tommen. Qyburn fled, robe aflame screaming. Oberyn sprinted past licking fire to dais, vaulted onto platform. Spear butt smashed flask aside. He grappled Cersei. She scratched, hissed. Flames spread along hem of her gown. Oberyn shoved her to marble, rolled, smothering cloth with crimson cloak. Fire gutters out. Cersei lay choking, hair singed. Oberyn rose, spear pointed at her throat. Enough, he said. She closed eyes, trembling. Kill me, she whispered. I cannot watch daughter steal throne. Tyrion approached. Soot-covered. Your choice, sister. Stand trial or burn. She laughed ragged. Trial? By faith? By snakes? Tears carved soot on cheeks. Better flames. Oberyn crouched. Fire cleanse, yes. But ashes feed nothing. Live to see kingdom heal. That is sharper torment. He motioned to knights. They bound her. Tyrion lifted Tommen from Sir Balon's arms. The boy clung to him, sobbing. Brother. Tyrion murmured. Let's find your sister. They exited throne room. Tarly horns sounded across city, Tyrell banners raised. Small folk streamed the streets cheering at Dornish sun, and golden roes flown side by side above ramparts. Queen Myrcella rode through Lion Gate on white palfrey, Eris beside. Seeing red keep secure, she guided horse up steps to courtyard, where Oberyn, blood-spattered, greeted her with bow. Tyrion placed Tommen before her saddle. She dismounted, embraced brother. Tommen cried into her shoulder. Crowd hushed at purity of moment. War siblings reuniting not as foes, but uncertain children. Myrcella straightened. By grace of seven, let this city know mercy, she proclaimed. No sack, no rape, no spoil. We fight for peace. Cheers erupted. Mercy rarely followed victory. Small folk wept at sound. Sun climbed, gilding broken towers. 7 days later, in halls repainted hurry-bright, Queen Myrcella held first court. Lords of Crownlands came. Massey, Celtigar, Rosby, each kneeling. The faith militant stood guard. High Septon blessed. Tywin, still fevered, remained hostage in Maker's cell, yet given Maester's care. Cersei awaited trial. Kevan negotiated for exiled seat at Casterly Rock. Bronn arrived escorting Arya. He received patent appointing him Lord of Stokeworth in exchange for peacekeeping Crownlands. Arya delivered list, Merentrant, Illanpain, names still breathing. Myrcella promised no shelter for killers, though trial must proceed blade. Arya accepted, face calm but eyes storms. Oberyn watched proceedings from cushioned bench. Healer insisted he avoid strain. Yet every vow sworn to Queen felt like balm. Elaria returned with Oberyn. Successful raids had collapsed Stormlord support for Cersei. Tiny arrived, cloak lined in scrolls of new poisons and cures. Sorella sent word of navy, forming to repel potential Ironborn opportunists. Tyrion assumed office of Master of Whisperers, though he declined spider-silk robes Varys favored. Instead he wore simple black doublet. At meeting of restored small council, Doran as hand, Olenna as Queen's voice, Samwell Tarly as Grand Master, Loras as Lord Commander of Queensguard. Tyrion delivered first report. Stannis sails, dragons may follow. Winter does not heed coronations. The council nodded. Work lay endless. That night, atop Maidenval's parapet, Oberyn met Tyrion, moon glaring white. We claimed city, Oberyn mused. Yet war's jaws still loom. Tyrion exhaled, wine flask dangling. Realms like shattered goblet. We glue shards, drink carefully, cut lips anyway. Oberyn chuckled. Then we forge new cup. From what metal? From belief, Oberyn answered. From daughters who refuse father's sins. From brothers who trade daggers for quills. From bastards and maids. And silent ghosts that rise to voice. Tyrion swirled wine. High words, for a sellsword poet. Prince, Oberyn corrected with grin. They leaned on crenellations, surveying streets where lanterns glimmered, points of quiet hope. Distant, faint roar trembled air. Perhaps a dragon across sea, perhaps wind. Tyrion raised flask to horizon. To whichever storm arrives, he said, may we teach it to sing. Oberyn clinked spear haft against flask. And may we dance until dawn. Below, the city exhaled, not in relief but expectation, like a theater dimming before next act. Yet this hush bore less fear now, more wonder. Somewhere a child hummed a new song of Sun Queen and Viper Knight. Somewhere a septon-lit candle for Lion King pardoned by mercy. Somewhere an orphan dreamed of dragons arriving not to burn, but to blaze trails into rising sun. And in the ascending dark, Queen Myrcella knelt alone before Iron Throne, fingers tracing steel barbs. She closed eyes, murmured promise. To rule kinder than steel, fiercer than rust, brighter than crowns of old. When she rose, moonlight sheathed throne, and blades seemed less menacing, no longer a chair of conquest, but one of burden willingly borne. Outside, bells of great sept tolled midnight. Across the realm, hearts stirred. Armies marched, oaths sworn, snows drifted from north. But for one breath, The land paused, poised between wounds of past and unknown dawn, and listened as tides of fate whispered new bedtime tales. Of vipers who spared, of lions who knelt, and of a girl queen whose first decree was mercy. In that breath, Oberyn Martell smiled up at constellations glittering like spear tips, and whispered to ghosts now quiet in his blood, "Rest. The story goes on."